Due to the state convention, we've missed doing a couple of videos for you, but we wanted to get back into the swing of it and talk a little bit about the core beliefs that we have when it comes to real estate. So the one we're going to talk about today is duplicable processes and systems guarantee results. Now, you know, the lack of a process or a system when we work with a buyer or seller really leaves us with no choice but to go out there and just wing it, you know, whenever we meet with them. Now, you may very well be good enough to do that, especially if you've done it before, but is that really the best way to go about creating a business? Now, by handling appointments like this on the fly, and especially if you're successful at it, you guarantee one thing, and that it's always going to be you that has to go out there and do it. Anything you do spontaneously keeps you from ever being able to delegate that project to someone else. Now, after all, without a system to follow, what you're depending on is your personality and your ability to react and respond in order to get that business. It is all about you. And let's face it, you can't be duplicated. Do we really want to be that important in this process? Now, you have guaranteed yourself a job, and as long as you're happy doing that, and you never look to pass it off to anybody else, then great. You know, it's going to work for you just fine, but it's definitely going to create a ceiling for what you're going to be able to achieve. Your reaction time and knowledge may be great, but what about everybody else's? Now, while some may rationalize this type of behavior as being flexible or molding the meeting to fit the individual, I really think it's truly nothing more than just not taking the time to prepare a process or a system to follow. Listing and buyer appointments generally follow a pretty logical sequence of events, and by having a system or a process in place, that puts us in a perfect position to be able to quickly and succinctly answer questions, handle objections, and determine if that seller or buyer are people that we even really want to be working with. What you most likely won't be able to do, though, is to be able to have much of a comfort level when it comes to these important appointments at all. You're constantly going to be hoping that you have the answers to whatever they want to know and wherever that conversation goes. It's not a very productive way to handle a very dollar-productive activity. Now, without a process or a system in place, though, what happens if you ever decide to bring on a team member who's going to be going on those listing and selling appointments? How will you ever be able to teach them to perform at an appointment? You will have to hope that they have the same ability you do to be able to do it on the fly. Of course, it isn't just the listing or buyer's appointment that demands a process or system. It's our client care and our follow-up transactions as well. Now, without a process in place, you're constantly having to react to a client's wants and needs. Knowing how a transaction works and with a system in place, you can proactively handle those items typically before they ever come up as questions from your buyer or seller. Now, which do you think a buyer or seller is going to find more desirable in their agent? Somebody that they have to constantly ask things for, even if they get those things answered immediately, or someone who has those things in front of them before they even have to ask? Real estate professionals who want to create a business rather than have a job understand the path to consistency and eventually proficiency is to start with a process, get it down to the fewest number of steps necessary to get the job done successfully, and then duplicate that process over and over again until it becomes so comfortable that you can't imagine doing it any other way. Think about people like professional golfers or bowlers. They get their system in place and then repeat it over and over because that gives them the highest probability of success. When they stray off that swing or they miss their mark, then the result is a bad shot or a bad frame. For us, not perfecting a system and using it over and over again, it means a bad transaction, or even worse, no transaction at all. Use a system for your real estate business. That way, no matter who ends up being responsible for the activity, whether it's you or someone else, once you start leveraging yourself, that person can easily be held accountable because you know what should be done and exactly what the results should be.